Thank you, Swapnil. Congratulations, everyone. And I would say all of you to please stay. Don't leave just because the book has been launched. Because if you're writers, there's so much to learn. And I see that there are so many poets as well. So the next session is also going to be equally interesting. This will be the next session will be addressed by our very own Manu, Dr. Manu Mangattu, member of Hydro, very favorite one as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more than 25 words. Manu and Mehboob, sir, please make a note of it and don't mute me. Okay. So Manu Mangattu is an English professor, poet, and editor. He has published 9 books, 72 international research publications, 93 academic papers, and 14 editorials. He serves as a chief editor or editor for various international journals. Besides translations from Chinese and Sanskrit, he writes poetry in English as well as in Indian languages. He was named Comrade to Poetry China in 2016, a visiting faculty at various universities, and a quintessential bohemian vagabond. He conducts poetry workshops, readings, and lectures. After an apprenticeship in Shakespeare under Dr. Stephen Greenblatt, Harvard University, Cambridge, he currently offers part-time guidance to 23 research scholars from India abroad and mentors to net English aspirants. So today he is going to give us a talk on poetry of soul and soul of poetry. So very eager and exciting to listen to him. And Prabhakaran sir, I think you also might find this talk very interesting because
Yes,
poetry is
yes,
also an abstraction, right?
yes, yes.
Let's hand over to Manu Mangattu. So Manu, are you there? Over to you. It's all yours. Kill it. Kill the stage.
Yeah, I'm here. I was using. First, I was planning to use my fingers to count the words you are going to use. Then I started using a calculator, and now I am using the computer. Okay.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Lavanya ji, and it was so nice listening to your poem. And actually, I have a lot of butterflies flying around my stomach and within my stomach because I see Prabhakaran sir is still there, and lot of army men are there. I mean, it's a privilege, of course, to speak in front of such an elite gathering, lot of very respected people, and I'm thankful to all, to Hydro, everyone for giving me this chance to speak. Maybe I'm talking too much, maybe for the second time. And before I begin, I would like to ask Lavanya ma'am one question. How much time should I be speaking? It's 6:11.
45 minutes max.
45 minutes maximum. Thank you. Okay, so I was listening to all the discussions that were happening, and I cannot resist the temptation to, revisit certain things that were discussed. Of course, I'm not going to put my nose into anything. Just Lavanya began with "Where is love," and then Prabhakaran sir, as one of our authors had rightly mentioned, he gave a very strategically inspiring lecture that invited a lot of questions, and Lavanya ji was telling that we will bombard him with questions next time. So I was very interested and intrigued by some of the things that he said, and I was of course very happy to hear all these things because it sparked off a lot of debate and a lot of very interesting discussions, and love as the absence of hatred, and Anil sir had some retorts for that, and then retort after retort, so it was interesting. And then I heard Prabhakaran sir saying that Freud is outdated, and Suthendra Patnis sir had something to say about Freud, and I was like, I didn't know what to say when he was saying, I'm a mathematician and neurosurgeons don't speak of love and love is not an emotion. Of course, I understand what he means when he says a mathematician, and we always understand this, right? So I was thinking that instead of what I intended to speak, I should speak something about these things, love as an emotion, because today is Valentine's Day, and it's, of course, there are other things, but we also are celebrating love and celebrating a lot of beautiful things today. And my lecture is unfortunately titled Soul of Poetry and Poetry of Soul, so I have to do some justice to that as well. Now, what I think, soul of poetry and poetry of soul, in between, I will be speaking about love as an emotion and love as the absence of hatred. I will not agree or disagree. I will just share my understanding of certain theoretical postulations made by certain people, like Shankara on this particular aspect, and Bharata. So to begin, I would, as you can see in the title of my topic, it's about soul and poetry, and I have poetically titled it Soul of Poetry and Poetry of Soul, but I guess it's a difficult thing to explain it. So we have the word soul, and in India we use the word Atman or Atma, something like that, to refer to soul. Now, I have something very interesting to offer. Most of us think that we know what the soul is, though, yeah, of course, it's a very metaphysical notion, and it's something that most of us cannot fully comprehend, but still we guess that we have a fair idea of what the soul is. You know, the dictionary, whether it is the Oxford Dictionary or the Cambridge Dictionary, the first definition would speak about the spiritual and the immaterial part or aspect of a human being or any living entity which is regarded as immortal, which is regarded as not dying. That is how we understand the soul. But what I would like to invite your attention to is the second meaning, again as a noun, that the Oxford Dictionary gives, that the Cambridge Dictionary gives to the word soul. And I will just read from it. See, this is what the Oxford Dictionary says, and this is the second definition for soul. It says, it's an emotional or intellectual energy or intensity, especially as revealed in a work of art or in an artistic performance. I don't know whether we have thought about it like that, have we? Soul as the emotional or intellectual energy or intensity, especially as revealed in a work of art or an artistic performance. Oh my goodness. And for better clarity, I would also refer to the Cambridge Dictionary, because we want to be sure that Oxford Dictionary has something is correct. So this is what the Cambridge Dictionary says. It defines the soul as, the second meaning of course, the quality of a person or work of art that shows or produces deep good feelings. The quality of a person or a work of art that produces good feelings. And the dictionary gives examples like, if you can't enjoy this music, you have got no soul. And for me, her paintings somehow lack soul. Now, have we really thought about soul as something to do with art also? Maybe we have thought that it has something to do with heart, but not as something that has something to do with art and work of art and artistic performance and feelings and emotions. Now, I leave it to you to think about it, to ponder over it and decide whether soul has such a meaning, or whether our understanding of soul included such an understanding as well. Now, I would just bring to your attention a very famous 20th century writer. His name is Kruger, and he says something curious. He says, without the feeling of soul, even the most encompassing and brilliant knowledge is mere cleverness. Now, he is bringing together two things, knowledge and soul, and he says without soul knowledge is not very good. So you need soul to make your knowledge wisdom. And it is a statement that reminds us of what Saint Paul, who has written so many books in the Holy Bible of the Christians. Saint Paul says, when he states that knowledge without love is empty and nothing. So another aspect, Valentine's Day, love, knowledge, love, and soul. There is a lot of connection, but we can't right away make a connection between these three, though we can see that there are some links here and there. Now, great music, painting, sculpture, great poetry, great drama, in all the many moods coming with everything, the cultural, the religious background, the personal taste, the subjective things and the objective things, together they are great. Why do we call a painting a great painting? Why do we call Mona Lisa a great painting? Or why do we say Beethoven such and such music is awesome, it's great? They are great because they transport us to the portals of totality, infinity and unground. Now, I want to take you to look at these two words. They take us to, they are considered great because they remind us of things like totality and infinity. Totality and infinity. What do we attach these terms with usually? God. Totality, infinity, God. Now, I keep it here and for your understanding. And in Indian aesthetics or in Indian concepts, in Indian spiritual concept, we have this very beautiful idea called Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Shivam here is not about, it is also about the Hindu god Shiva, but it is eminently and preeminently it refers to the God, or to the God or the goodness that is within us. The goodness that is within us. See, Hinduism as a non-dual school of thought, non-dual. Now we are speaking about, I want to take you to that idea where our Prabhakaran sir was telling us about love as the absence of hatred, non-duality, and there is this duality as well, Advaita, Dvaita. So Hinduism has a non-duality school of thought which focuses on the idea of Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahman. And what is Brahman? Brahman is God. I am God. And what is God? According to the Taittiriya Upanishad, it says that Brahman is Rasa. And what is Rasa? Rasa is the aesthetic pleasure that you derive from you read a great work of art, when you see a great dramatic performance, when you are in the world of art, the experience is the scenic experience that you have is usually considered Rasa. So Brahman is Rasa. Taittiriya Upanishad says, and having attained to him, you are filled with bliss. What is bliss? Bliss is considered Brahmananda, the realization, the joy of becoming one with Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. And then we have another beautiful concept again in non-duality school of Hindu thought, Tattvamasi, which is written on top of Shabarimala, temple and all. Tattvam Asi, that thou art. You are that. You are that. Tattvam Asi. So Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram frames the basis of these two foundational principles. And as I told you, Satyam, truth, Shivam, goodness, and Sundaram, the beautiful. Life is experienced as Satchidanand. Sat Chit Anand. We call God Satchidananda. Satchidananda. Sat means truth. Chit is about the consciousness, and Anand is about Ananda, is about bliss, the state of perfect happiness. So it is more like Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram combined with Sat, Chit, Anand, truth, godliness or goodness, beauty, and this is about the the fulcrum around with Indian. I'm not saying Hindu in a narrow religious sense. I'm speaking about the Hindustani or the Indian concept. And here, what we can see very interestingly is, look at the normative sciences. There are three major normative sciences. I'm sure the science people will definitely know these things. There are three normative sciences. They are logic, ethics, and aesthetics. Now, what are these three? Logic is Tarka Shastra. What is it trying to do? It is Tarka Shastra, or logic is trying to take you to truth, Satyam. Now, the second one, ethics. Ethics is Niti Shastra, and it is trying to take you to welfare, goodness, Shivam. And the third one is aesthetics, Saundarya Shastra, and it is trying to take you to beauty, Sundaram. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Ideal normatives. Now, what are these concepts? I was speaking about science, I was speaking about art, and I am speaking about God. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram is expressly about God. So, my dear friends, soul of poetry, poetry of the soul, you can find the connection, right? I cannot explain everything, because certain things, especially when it comes to poetry, are better left unexplained, because they are unparaphrasable, things that you lose when you translate. The untranslatable, unparaphrasable element is what is actually the soul of poetry. So this is what people say. It is a disinterested perception of beauty that characterizes all aesthetic experiences, and the real perception of beauty is what distinguishes an aesthetic experience from all other kinds of experiences. I will simplify it. So what are the basic characteristics of an aesthetic experience? Aesthetic experience, the experience that you get when you are in the world of art, when you are reading a poem, when you are listening to a great music, when you are reading something beautiful, when you are the audience and seeing a grand performance. That is the aesthetic experience, and it can also be the creative experience of the writer, or whatever is beautiful in the work. All these are considered aesthetic, but here I would like to look at what we feel as the Sahridaya, as the audience, as the listener. And here, all aesthetic experiences are unselfish. Now, I am not a mathematician, and I will talk about emotions only. I am basically a poet, and I am interested in those things. So I would like to tell you about these things in an artistic angle. So what I am telling is, aesthetic experiences are unselfish. I don't know whether you will agree, but I am sure that you have experienced that. Artistic experiences are unselfish. Why? Because they are not tied to our ego, the I-centeredness, ego. Freud's concept, ego, superego. Prabhakaran sir was saying that it is outdated and we no longer. Yeah, his ideas, especially his concepts, are. It is mostly used in interpretations and all, but we don't use it as a scientific idea in psychology. Maybe in some other branches we may use it, especially in literary interpretation and all. It's very interesting to read, but the truth value of Freud is always questionable. Anyway, so what I am trying to say is it is not tied to our ego. Now, what is ego? I-centric. We are all I specialists, they say. I. I am thinking about I, me, mine. So, a man, when he is in the world of art, a man or a woman, he or she becomes totally unconscious of his private self. This is what art does to you. So, otherwise, whenever we are in the real world, we are selfish people. Let's admit that we are all selfish people. We try to be maybe compassionate, maybe sympathetic. Sometimes we manage to be empathetic, but most of the time we are selfish. And only when we are in the world of art, think of a situation when you are in a movie theater and your hero is going to die. You will say, I will sacrifice anything if my hero is saved. Now, that hero has nothing to do with you, and you know in your heart of hearts that it's just a movie and it's just whatever it is. But you, when you are in that world of art, you are so unselfish that you are ready to forgo your personal preferences. You will say, if you are a child, you will say, okay, I will not eat ice cream today, eat the ice cream that Papa has bought me for me today or promised me today, if my hero marries the heroine. This is the simple idea with the unselfishness that characterizes all artistic experiences. Now, the second idea that I want to explain to you is that we cannot, and here is where I want to speak something about whether love is an emotion. Now, psychology has certain things to say, art has certain things to say, and neuroscience has certain things to say about emotions. I perfectly agree with that, and I also admit that I don't understand most of these things because my brain is not that good. It only understands a little bit of poetry. The thing is, psychologically or aesthetically, artistically, we speak of emotions as something that exists in the world of art. And now what I am talking about is, there are two types of emotions: art emotions and life emotions. Art emotions and life emotions. It's simple. What is life emotion? The emotion that you feel in your real life. I don't know whether there are emotions, but whatever you feel, I call that emotion. And the thing that you feel when you fall in love with a girl, what you feel is love. Let us call it love. And that is love, agreed. But there is something that happens when you are listening to a poem and your hero falls in love with your heroine. Suppose you are listening to Abhijnana Shakuntalam and Dushyanta is falling in love with Shakuntala. So, can we say that Dushyanta is having love? No. We cannot say Dushyanta is having love, because what Dushyanta is having is something different. It's different. It's Shringara. Shringara. I mean, I don't have a word in English, but the idea is Shringara is the emotion that is excited by artistic circumstances, and love is the love, or reti, that is the Sanskrit equivalent. So reti is the emotion that is excited by real life situations. Reti, it doesn't have any bad connotations. Reti simply means love. So what I feel when I fall in love with a person is love, and what I feel when I am in the theater and I see Shakuntala falling in love with Dushyanta is Shringara. So we know that there are 9 rasas. We speak about 9 rasas, Navarasas: Shringara, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanaka, Bhivatsa, Adbhuta, Shanta, the 9 rasas. Now, none of these emotions or emotional states exist in real life. They exist only in the world of art. And there are certain feelings that we experience when we are in our real life which are relatable to these emotions, emotional states: Sringara, Hasya, Karuna. Karuna, what is Karuna? Karuna is not something that you relate with, in South Indian languages, Karuna has more connection with Karunya, which means compassion. But Karuna Rasa is about sorrow, Shoka. And what you experience in real life is Shoka, and what art produces in you is not shoka, it produces karuna rasa in you. So just something, adding something more to the idea that love is not an emotion. Different things, it's a matter of perspective as well, because art looks at emotion in a particular way. Life has certain things that which you can explain using language or using science or using I don't know, there are different tools which you can use to explain. For example, for a doctor, love may be about the rise in the heartbeats, right? And it is not palpitation, it is there is a kind of beating within your heart. So you can say that it is love, and that may be how a doctor might explain. I don't know, this is just my this is the way I'm trying to explain it to you. And then something else that art does is it gives you a very broad, comprehensive worldview that is not limited by any narrow parochial considerations. So that is something very, very particular, very beautiful about art. It gives you a comprehensive worldview. And I'm not saying that the scientists are not artists. The scientists are artists. There is art in everything. There is art in everything. Art is not about poetry and drama only. No, art is about everything. Everywhere you can find art. We were discussing the art of Rohit Sharma's batting, etc. Yesterday in the group. I was discussing, and yeah, so there is a lot of art happening elsewhere as well, and that is also art. And this broader perspective towards life is something that art can give you. It gives you a broader, comprehensive worldview. And how does it give you this comprehensive worldview? By amalgamating, by bringing together opposites, opposing things. Now look at what we were saying earlier. We were saying that love is the absence of hatred. There are two ways of looking at it, love and hatred. The West looks at love and hatred as a binary opposite. Love as the opposite of hatred. So either you have love or you have hatred. That is how the West looks at this love-hate relationship. And there is either light or darkness. Now in the East, we have people like Shankaracharya, Sri Shankara, the Advaita philosophy. The idea that he puts forward is something very beautiful. He says that there is neither love nor hatred, it's basically a continuum. And I guess this is what Prabhakaran sir was articulating. So it's a continuum. It's, the more, the absence of hatred is love, and the absence of love is hatred. It's a continuum. It's like a timeline. So when you have a timeline, something like this, you have a point 0, and then here it is -1, -2, -3, it goes like way, and here it is +1, +2, +3, like that. And it's always a continuum. It's a tilt. So nobody is completely good, nobody is completely bad. There is neither complete darkness nor complete light. Light is the absence of darkness, darkness is the absence of light. So this was the Advaita philosophy that tried to, that's a very beautiful way of explaining the binary, looking at the binary opposition theory in the West. Love as the absence of hatred. Hatred, that is one thing that art can help you do. It harmonizes opposites, it harmonizes paradoxes, and that is why this day is very interesting. Why? We are speaking about poetry, and I guess that our brochure today had something like what better way to celebrate Valentine's Day than with poetry. And what is the relationship? Shakespeare said, Shakespeare made one of his characters say that the lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. The lunatic, the madman, the lover, the Valentine's Day specialist, and then the poet. the literary person. They are of imagination all compact. All compact. They are very similar. This is what Shakespeare made one of his characters say. And we have Albert Einstein saying that a fine line separates a genius from a madman. And you know, these are very interesting things, and these are genius and madman. We think that they are opposites, but a genius like Albert Einstein would say that a fine line, there is only a fine line that separates a genius from a madman. And today somebody was saying love as an emotion. Love, people speak about love. Anil sir was saying something about love, and something that comes to our mind when we think about love is, this is a very famous, I don't know whether it is correct or not, but they say love is blind. Love is blind. And when you look at the image that they keep in the court, justice is, you know, the goddess of justice has her eyes blind. Now look at it, there is a problem as well. Does it, or sometimes you can explain it by saying that it means that there is no partiality, so it's always correct, blind. But does it also mean that it's always blind, it doesn't see the truth? So there is a lot of possibility for interpretations there. And things like death, illness, madness, tragedies, all these things are sublimated and brought together in the world of art. Opposites, right? That is why we like a tragedy. You see a movie, it's a tragic movie, still you like it. In real life we don't like tragedies, but in the world of art we like tragedies. Death is very tragic, but a poet can say that life is so charming and beautiful that death has fallen in love with death has fallen in love with life. Poetic way. And then life and death become lovers. So or illness, think of madness or illness, and we find that there is a very close connection between creativity and you know, such artistic inclinations and illnesses, mental problems. You know, if you just look at the statistics, you will find that there is a huge upward surge in the graph when we are thinking about the suicides among artists. Most of the artists many artists commit suicide. Think about madness among artists. Again, there is an upward surge. Others are, within double quotes, normal. Artists are abnormal. So what happens? There is madness, there is illness, there is suicide. Are these good things? No, but these things also come together. It may be something like a package. So if you want to be an artist, you have to take also this. So amalgamation of these opposite things. And interestingly, artistic experiences are something that blend the aesthetic with the musical and the mystical. I was already speaking about this thing, the musical and the mystical things. Artistic, musical, mystical, all these things have a lot of similarity. For example, we use opposites, we use paradoxes, we use oxymora to explain these kind of phenomena. To explain artistic phenomena, we use we use oxymora. You know, like darkness visible. It's poetic, it's musical, and it is something that you will also use when you define God. I mean, when you speak about spiritual experiences. None of these experiences can be explained in normal words. That is something very common, and that is why we have to sometimes resort to these contradictory or paradoxical collocations, bringing together words to explain these kinds of experiences. And this is the idea. And I want to say that it brings together prophets and poets. It brings together madmen and poets, but also poets and prophets. In Indian concept was the Rishi Patta Tota, who said that non Rishi Kavirityuktam, a non Rishi cannot be a poet. So if you have to be a poet, you have to be also a Rishi. And there are many interesting statements made by different people which say that love and poetry are very closely connected. Love, if you are a lover, you will write poetry, and if you are a poet, you will write about love. This.
Manu, sorry to interrupt you. Just 10 more minutes.
Oh wow, that's great, awesome, thank you. uh,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah, I can understand, no issues. I will wind up. See, so the idea is, what is the soul of poetry? There are different schools of thought in India. Some people say Rasa is the soul. Some people say Alamkara, figures of speech. Alamkara is the soul of poetry. Some people say style is the soul of poetry. Style, Ridi Ratma Kavisya, Ridi is the soul of poetry. And then some others would say Vakrokti Jivita, Vakrokti is the life and the essence of poetry. Kavyasya Dhvani, the ability to suggest things, that is the essence of poetry. And there are many other explanations, various explanations as to what is the soul of poetry. I am not going to give you an answer either, because I don't know what is the real soul of poetry, but maybe it is that unparaphrasable element. It was Benedetto Croce who replaced the idea. Earlier people used to believe that all art is expression. Benedetto Croce said that all expression is art. All expression is art. That is, there is some artistic element in everything that you speak. And Otto Jespersen, he made a very interesting statement. He said that every sentence that we speak, every utterance we make has three components: expression, suppression, and impression. Now, what is suggestion? What is this dhvani, the ability of poetry to suggest something? Instead of actually speaking something, it suggests something. And and it is said that suggestion is impression through suppression. I am sure that some of the poets here would agree with me. Suggestion is impression. You create an impression in the mind of your reader through suppression, by hiding certain things. Now, why should we hide certain things? Why? If we hide something, suppose there is a child, you have a child before you, and if you do like this, immediately this child will start, it will be very interested, and it will try to push your hand away, and when you remove both the hands, the child is very happy. Yeah, but initially the child could see your face very clearly, but when you did like this, the child wants to see, and it will pull your hands away. So that is very natural in all of us. When we say something, when we do something, we want to uncover things, concealment and discovery, hiding and finding something. There is a great beauty, there is a great happiness in that. If the listener is not interested in what we are saying, we will not be able to impress the listener. That is why many people will be sleeping now. If I am unable to impress my audience, many people will be sleeping. And likewise, to evoke interest in the listener, we must hide something, we must suppress something. If we express everything, it results in boredom. The greatness of great writers lie in their ability to suppress, hide things. And what is this reason for the beauty of suppression? One, I would say there is a lot of novelty. You find something new. That is why you like when something is hidden. And then there is this scope for quest. It's a quest. It's a journey to find something. It's a quest. And then there is a conquest. The conquest gives you a lot of happiness. When things are hidden, so the idea of concealment and discovery. When things are hidden from view, the charm of the object that is hidden is enhanced. And that is why it is said, Gudham Sat Chamatkarokti. It is concealment that lends charm, that gives beauty to an object. Likewise, this is the idea with, and when I speak about Gudham, I would wind up with something from Albert Einstein, because Albert Einstein, his concept of, Albert Einstein was not an atheist. He was one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century. He was not an atheist, he was an agnostic. He believed in a certain idea of God, and you can read about it. Einstein said that he believed in Spinoza's God, Baruch Spinoza. Einstein believed in Spinoza's God. Now, what is the Spinoza's God? I would like to just read something for you from Einstein, and then I will wind up. Einstein writes, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious side of life." Mystery, Gotham, hidden. It is the deep feeling which is at the cradle of all true art and science. In this sense, and only in this sense, I count myself amongst the most religious people. Blaise Pascal also said something very similar. You can read this book, The World as I See It. It's a collection of essays by Albert Einstein, and I will give you some few sentences so that you to evoke that curiosity, interest in. So Einstein speaks to our creative child, our search for wonder, our curiosity, and he says a couple of things, just a couple of things. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. This insight into the mystery of life, coupled though it be with fear, has also given rise to religion. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive forms, this knowledge, this feeling is at the center of true religiousness. In this sense, and in this sense only, I belong in the ranks of devoutly religious men. He continues, I cannot imagine a God who rewards and punishes the objects of his creation, whose purposes are modeled after our own. A God, in short, who is but a reflection of human frailty. Neither can I believe that the individual survives the death of his body. And it goes on like that. And finally, he says, I believe in Spinoza's God. This is the idea that he wants to say, go through Spinoza, goes through Max Muller, and you will find that this idea of Spinoza's God has very close resemblances with the Indian concept of, the Vedanta philosophy in India. Think about that. Vedanta is about the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras. So there is a lot of connection. And if you go further, you can find that Spinoza, he had something to do with Islam, the religion Islam, with the Christian religion, all these things, though he was speaking of a different God altogether. So the poetry of the soul of poetry. Let's have that mind of Einstein, which said that we are like a child who enters a library and knows that there will be some writers who have written all these books, but we don't know who wrote these books. So that is the mindset that poetry and love, we know that there is something, but we don't know who, what, where, when it happened. So with that spirit of enquiry and with that spirit of childlike curiosity, we can go ahead in our quest for the beautiful, for the mysterious, for the musical, for the artistic, for bliss, for Brahmananda. Thank you.
Thank you, Manu, for this wonderful session. Yeah, a lot of applause for you. I think you brought everything together: mathematics, spirituality, abstraction, art.
Maybe
I have
if I had
That
2
was
more hours.
amazing.
Yes.
2 more hours.
Full meal for me, that is like a full meal for me.
Thank you.
My goodness.
It's really
I'm
very
full.
well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Devi, hi, bro.
Hello.
So after your brother's meeting, I would like to ask Prabhakaran sir, how did you find the session of our Manu session on soul of poetry and poetry of soul? Sir, your expert comments, please.
I'm not an expert, but I liked it. It's beautiful. I liked all of you, and I feel I have done the right thing of accepting Mr. Mahboob's invitation. But it leaves me incomplete because I would like to meet you all, wonderful people. You are very different. Of course, there are many others exactly like all of us. We don't get so attentive audience. So as audience, I feel Hydro is really something different. You like to communicate with those kind of people, that kind of thing. I'm telling. So I personally feel, if I have to answer your question, I would like to meet you. We may not be meeting again. Please understand that. But I would like to meet you, say, in a village in Andhra Pradesh where there are no mosquitoes. Sit under a tree and a full day session where you don't talk to me until I tell you. And then I will start talking to you on many issues from my perspective as an enforcer. That's my job. My job is to kill, punish, get people be happy. I'm looking at the well-being of the people of this country without any kind of selfishness. This has been with me from childhood. So I would like you to listen to me. None of them will be hypothetical. There will be no hypothesis I'll put in front of you. I'll only put really tested hypothesis, but none of them you will believe. And I will only put those which you can take because some of them are shocking, can be shocking. So I want to actually answer to you, Lavanya. If you ask me what I would like to say, I want to sit with you all under a tree, a nice tree which Shankaracharya used to sit. Those days there were no mosquitoes like this. Do you know mosquitoes kill maximum humans among everything? Mosquitoes kill maximum. Of course, it is vectorial. The next party who kills humans are humans themselves. And
Yes.
when our demographic density goes, mosquitoes will take a back seat. The only people who will be on the top list of killers will be human beings, which also includes suicide. I just wrote about it yesterday in my book because we have to understand this kind of a thing. So I have a lot to tell you and see how we can eliminate hate from this world because that is the worst of the emotions. That is also going to be there because we have to kill ourselves. There is nobody above us who will kill and eat us. There is nobody in the food chain above us. That is the problem. And God is so, if I say God, I will not talk about God, but assuming God has created us, He is such a wonderful fellow who has made the first man and went to play golf on vacation like many of the American presidents. Because, because everything is in auto. Everything.
Correct.
You don't need God. God has done the first job and took a vacation. And if, because the reincarnation, what we talk about is not after my death, I produce my children, and that children are my reincarnation genetically. You see, there is everything there. I have never seen anybody like God who could be a model for us on how to design something. And life, we all get killed only for the life's continuity. Life will continue only if death is assured. If you want to be born, if you want to come to this living world, and if you stand in the queue at the immigration office in heavens or whatever, you got to show your return ticket to get the visa to life. You have to tell them, look, you will return. You will die. That's assured death. Unless death is assured, you can't be born. Any life forms. So in my book, I have written about this kind of thing. What is the future of the human being? and I have certain principles, and I'm sure it will not sell because nobody is going to believe me. He talked, he talked about, Manu talked about what I call Prasthana Trayi, Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. I only want to tell you about Bhagavad Gita. These are the Prasthana Trayi, which talks all about the life and whatever it is under the Indian scriptures. Bhagavad Gita is a user's manual. Bhagavad Gita is like that book which you get when you buy a car. Bhagavad Gita tells you how to live. But the problem which I found in Bhagavad, I have done 2 courses in Bhagavad Gita, 3 years. But I haven't understood it, and I only understood it is written in such a way only our 5th or 6th or 10th generation will understand it. So every interpretation that comes on it is not done correctly. It's beautiful way of living. A small little book. I look at it like one of those chocolate cookies, where the biscuit will be all around and chocolate will be only inside the center. So Mahabharata is the cover. It's actually the cover. It protects that Bhagavad Gita inside somewhere. And I think Vyasa is again like Shakespeare, not an individual, has written this particular Mahabharata as script to cover and tell you about Lord Krishna and Arjuna or whatever, how to live. Look at the 18th chapter, last stanza, 78. It says, wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna, everything will be fine. You don't need another election or something like that. But remember, there cannot be Krishna, there cannot be Arjun, because Krishna is knowledge. But Krishna with that knowledge, or you with that knowledge, how to govern this country, cannot govern unless you become the chief minister. Then only you get the authority of Arjuna to kill. But Arjuna without knowledge, or the person without authority, cannot survive, cannot govern. So you need both, and these both will never meet unless in a battlefield or something. So he brought them to talk about it. So when you look at all these kind of things, you know what I find about life? What Manu said, everything is beautifully explained. But you have such potential, all of you. The only difference between an old man and a young man is that the old man knows, traveled a little more, but he is actually a fossil. Whereas you are new, you are absolutely genetically ultra modern. All of you sitting in front of me are much ahead of me. But give me a chance, I can just change you. And once you get out of it, you will do wonders. That's what I wanted to say. So if you ask me frankly, I wanted to sit with you all without any hang up, without any problem, without even lunch or dinner. Let's talk and see something. I have enough material with me on this thing. War, now he talked about opposite. Love is not the opposite of hate, according to my theory. Peace, we talk about P-E-S-E, peace. Tolstoy has written about war and peace. That's fine, but there is nothing known as peace. Do we have peace now? No. If peace is opposite to war, when there is no war, then the whole world should be comfortable. Well-being should be maximum. It is not. So the terminology I use, even in my notes to the ministry, in my research papers, when I write to defense ministers, when I talk abroad, when I talk in United Nations or international organizations, I use a term called war or other than war situation. Other than war, which other dash than dash war is the only situation which is opposite to war, because there will be enough conflicts. It's pretty bad situation. And I have written that war is over. 2021 onward, the last was Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenian war, Russia agreed. I don't think there will be a war of that kind anymore. There will be no more ISIS type of a war. There will be no more Saddam. There will be no more world war. But what will humans do when there is no war? Humans will be in other than war situation. But humans want violence, Humans want aggression. So it will continue. I guarantee more and more and more and more violence, deaths, people killing people, and mosquitoes withdrawing, saying, my God, yeah, you guys are too smart. You don't need anybody to kill you. You can do it yourself. That's what I wanted to say. So we may perhaps meet again. I don't know. But that has to be direct, together, physical, and we have to be under a tree, not in a five-star hotel. We
Point
will talk.
taken, sir.
We'll talk.
Point taken, sir.
Thank you.
But we'll all have to wait for the corona to go away. We all have to wait for that.
According to me, it's 2023.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So late.
I
But
already.
no, we were
I already.
thinking.
You can see my writings on that. There are reasons for that.
Okay, so you're thinking about 2021. No, late 2021 maybe is the right time to have
2023 will
offline
be free.
sessions.
Absolutely.
Oh God, too far away. Okay, we'll kill it on online platforms. No worries.
Online is
have-
not very convenient. It's okay. Like if I want to talk to Manu just now holding his hand, it will not be possible. Because you may have to comfort him. You may have to, all of you.
Yeah, I may be shivering, definitely.
Anyway, so Manu, that was really beautiful session. One more session, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I enjoyed it. It's a wonderful evening, starting from Prabhakaran sir's address to us and the way it turned out the entire discussion. We'll take some questions for Manu. So anyone has any questions on Manu's talk, please shoot it right away. No one, no? Everyone was chatting, they're putting their comments on the messages. And now when time comes to ask
I
a
want to
question,
say something. I
you
can
want to-
say
yeah,
something.
go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
Kanini.
Good evening, everyone. I am so delighted to hear Manu sir speak. And I was thinking that the word that kept coming to my mind when he was talking about mystery and mystique and mysteriousness was that when we suppress something, we are actually allowing the reader or the receiver of our message to use their own imagination and to also delve into their own identity. Because any topic you take and we share in a poem, it could be heartbreak, it could be heartbreak for what reason? Or it could be death, what led to the death? Who is left behind? What was the life before the death? These are points of imagination, and I like that word imagination very much. And I wondered why Manu sir did not use this word. That was my question.
Kanish ma'am, it is very unfair that you ask a question because it is when I saw you in attending the meeting, I felt like my mom was attending the meeting. So
Thank you. Thank you. So kind of you.
Really, you are like my mom. So it was such a pleasure that you were there. I perfectly agree with you. The word imagination. But some great people too have forgotten the word imagination. Bharata forgot it.
And what I meant was
Aristotle forgot
imagination.
it.
Excuse me.
Kanish
Excuse
ma'am,
me. I'm
Kanish ma'am,
sorry to cut you
was
off,
surprised.
but I'm trying to say that imagination can be a space
Definitely.
for the reader or the receiver to use their own identification.
Absolutely.
That is when you're suppressing.
Yeah, and that's you are spot on because if the speaker says everything, the thing is closed. It is not open ended, but we want to keep it
Yes.
open ended. And imagination is that space where an open ended poem, an open ended novel is taking you, and you want to leave maximum to the reader, to the spectator, then say everything. You are spot on, ma'am. Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have one point to add, Mr. Manu, if you allow me.
Sure, sir.
So Mr. Manu, it was a really delightful experience to listen to you. You spoke about Advaita philosophy, you spoke about Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, everything. It was spot on. And one thing that I want to add is there is one Hungarian psychologist by name Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who has given a very famous TED talk, and he talks about the concept of flow. Okay, the concept of flow is a kind of transcendental experiences that one goes through when somebody is producing art, which is confirmed by your talk. I mean, our ancestors across different cultures, they figured it out thousands of years ago, which is now confirmed by the modern side. So at your talk was spot on that front. And I mean, you talk about Advaita. I'm a Dvaitist actually. So I just wanted to know. I mean, what is the? I mean, is the Dvaita philosophy not in sync with artistic expression?
Well, it is. We cannot say it isn't in sync or it is in sync. It's there, and art is there. Advaita is there, and if somebody is to speak on Advaita, it is you, not me, because you are the scholar and I'm the child, I'm the listener, I'm the student. But definitely, sir. Yeah, these are different things. They coexist. The Advaita is again. Advaita is about coexistence, mutually. It's about existing together. So I don't think that it is mutual, it is exclusive, or it is something that will stay away from, or that will take the space of art, or that is exclusive of art. It coexists. That is what I think, because we cannot say that one takes the space of another or one is exclusive of the other. So both coexist. Art exists along with Advaita or Dvaita philosophy, whether it is binary opposition or, I mean, because we have the concept of beauty and we have the concept of sublimity as well. So in that sense, there is this two things happening simultaneously. And if you want to look at what Nietzsche said, he spoke about the Dionysiac and the Apollonian. So again, there is a binary opposition, but then when you think about the birth of, that was where he spoke about it, birth of a tragedy. So again, the Apollonian to the Dionysiac, it is it's a spectrum, it's a continuum. You are not speaking of something as opposing to another, but you can also speak about it. And I guess that it's a wonderful contribution that Indian philosophy, or of course Shankara, has given to the world of philosophy. And still, even today, the West hasn't had something that would stand shoulder to shoulder with Advaita. It's unbelievably beautiful and simple too. Not simple to simple people. I mean, for you, I don't know, because you know a lot, you might find it very difficult. But for people who don't understand, it is very simple.
Yeah, and one more thing, you spoke about the fine line of demarcation that exists between madness and genius, right?
Yeah.
There's a guy called Dean Keats Monton. He studies creative. He has spent his entire life studying geniuses of the world, and he has empirical evidence drawn from statistics that people with a poetic temperament has a very high incidence of psychopathology. It is confirmed actually, which is again validated by your talk. So
Lavanya, did you hear that?
I know how you
Exactly.
said, why you said
Are
validate.
you saying Sudhir?
Lavanya, did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that. He's saying the indirectly
Psychopath.
psycho. Yeah.
He
Much else.
held the nerve.
no, I don't mean that. Even
Come on, hey.
I felt like he was slapping me.
no, actually, even I dabble in poetry at times, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Everybody
please
is in
include
the same boat.
yourself as well.
Yeah. Everybody's in the same boat.
Sudhindra shared the
okay.
title in the group. We'll check it out.
Yeah.
Sure, sir.
Could you please send those two names? The audience would be interested. Those two names. The first one you spoke about, a person who gave a TED talk, and now you were speaking about
That is quite popular, Manu. The first book is
I am not familiar with either of them.
okay. The second one is what Sudhindra I am asking, but a quick point for Manu. I could see the Aristotle start of your talk, but then I don't know if you realize it or not. You went into a bit into Kierkegaard, where he divides into ethical life, aesthetic life, and the religious life. That's how you should lead a life, and the highest is the religious life. But I'll move on further. You mentioned the Nietzsche, right?
Yeah, Nietzsche.
The Apollonian and the Dionysian, the concrete and the abstract, fuse together continuously out of which emerges a third form. And that's, he doesn't say the Apollonian and the Dionysian conflict each other. There is thesis, antithesis, and there is synthesis. So in his time and in his space, Nietzsche's answer was that cultural conflict actually fused into the music drama. of his boss. Actually, in fact, the birth of tragedy is an indirect sales pitch for his manager. And then, if you go to the end of the book, he says the tragedy has died, the music and poetry have died. What will now live is the music drama, the mix of both. And so it's not just binaries. Thesis antithesis always continuously brings out a synthesis. They are not like opposing each other. They're merging and forming a third form. Even that's how the history and the human conscious go about. So that's just wanted to tell you about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's move on now to the last section of the evening, poetry. So whoever wants to recite the poetry, it's open mic. Just on your mic and tell that I want to recite a poem, and we'll hear you out. Yes. Yeah, Sudhindra, why don't you do the honors? Let's start with you. Come on.
Yeah, actually, it is.
Only love poems, okay? No hate.
Jai Bolo Sudhindra ki Jai.
I mean, it is actually, like I told you, Lavanya, it is about friendship. I wrote it for my friend.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it goes like this. Each day seems like time eternal. I know, friend, that it feels like hell. Tearfully watching the daily news, unable to get rid of my lonely blues. Nights are short and days are long. My loved ones tell me to stay strong. Maybe this too shall pass away, or who knows, my doom is on its way. Still, I have not lost my heart. As a citizen, I shall play my part. Will bear this and stay indoors, in spite of feeling totally bored. That is all I can do and have to. Luckily, I have friends like you to talk to. So call me friend whenever you feel like. It would give me the much needed respite. I yearn for your conversations and jokes, as media is full of junk and hoax. I crave for a long walk with you outside. It feels lonely, bro, as I have no one on my side. We would have a drink together, as we are like birds of the same feather. Time would pass away just like that. With no one to talk to, I feel like nuts. I will still pray for you, bro. Stay at home and be careful though. This is all I can do for you now. God willing, we will overcome this somehow. That's it.
Yes, we have to overcome this. Good poem, Sudhindra. Very nice one. Thank you very much.
And Indra is not a poet. See, he's more of a reader and a prose writer. So somebody attempting poetry, I think, for Lavanya, poetry, like if you just touch her, 2 poems will fall around, or 3 poems fall all around.
I just want to say a few words about Lavanya. I've read her.
For Sudhindra, he's a neuroscience and the brain psychology kind of reader.
And writing such poetry is really, yes.
And I want to say a few words about Lavanya. I have read her book, Bare Thoughts. I mean, every word hits like a hammer on the head. It's so deep. I mean, it's like, I mean, I really like your poem, Lavanya. I mean, they are superb. I mean, you're not only one, you are the best poet that I ever met. Seriously.
Oh, thanks. This is very kind of you. Really?
Yeah, I really mean it.
Lavanya, you should put a note on the book, wear a helmet and read my book. It hits you hard on the head.
Okay.
Or buy the book, get a helmet free.
Yeah, you sponsor it, please, from Hydro.
Swapnil, please note the book.
Okay, let's go to our next
Can I?
poet. Yes,
Can I?
Neena, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am no one here in midst of all these literature science persons. I am just I call myself a novice. I was not into literature in the beginning. Due to matrimonial market demands, I was put into the science stream. But then I found that literature was my love. So this is just a very plain, simple, very kiddish. Thank God Manu sir has mentioned about, you have to look from the child perspective. For me, love have always been something that I didn't get it like in a pure form from my mother, or I was able to give it to my daughter. So children are everything to me. So it's about something of that sort. Am I clear? Am I loud and clear?
Yes, Neena. Please go ahead.
Yes, very clear. Carry on, Neena. And thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kanisma, for support. Yeah, I flew during the pandemic and joined a school in Kerala in panic. 19 of them online they were, 10-year-olds, and super excited in their screens they wear. They all seem to be virtually pro in PlayStations like Fortnite, my foe. Each theme had to be inspiring and thrilling. No resources, no notes, no textbook, and no writing. Sleepless nights of research I had to spend clueless to rediscover the oceanic species ecosystem in 3D videos countless. Some became animal activists and held up their posters as pacifists. 19 of them called themselves blasters and blockbusters. By the first theme, they had become online globetrotters. Then the body systems they began to tour, digestive that starts with tongue for flair. Let's make poop. I doubtfully squeaked. Oh gosh, they indeed made crap and joyfully shrieked. They questioned patience at descent until they became bodily cognizant. The third theme was on civilization, and virtual time machines got them into fascination. Gilgamesh, pharaohs, King Shingwang, and dancing girl of Mohenjo-daro, they investigated. Archaeologists answered their endless queries until to chroniclers they escalated. Monarchy, anarchy, democracy, dictatorship got them puzzled. Judicial, federal, and executive branches got them tangled and muddled. Alvira, Nation of Freya, and Technoprussia press conferences were held. These were the countries they had made in the end. But when they heard the voices of King Bacchus and Roosevelt in unison, they too wanted to fight for equality as beautiful citizens. Will I ever meet them in person? I'm doubtful. But for sure, they have given me memories inbountiful. I flew in during the pandemic and joined a school in Kerala in panic. 19 of them still online, 11 years now. How I wish I could embrace them offline. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, Nina. You spoke the online classes perfectly. Only a teacher of mothers will know the horrors of online teaching. So very well done. Beautifully written poem. Absolutely enjoyed.
And
Thank you.
she's a liar. She says she doesn't write good poems.
Exactly. See, really.
This is just my fourth. I am not like any one of you who has published books or anything. This is just my fourth. Thank you so much. It was a serendipity that I met some friends and encounters, many, and they instilled, like, Nina, you should go for it. And thank you so much. Long live literature. Thank you.
Yeah, long list. Thank you so much. Well, never call yourself a novice because poetry always is the flow of powerful emotions. That was defined by one of the greatest poets. Just do.
Good evening, Neera ma'am. Lavanya ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, Isha. Nice to have you here.
I would also like to recite a poetry on pandemic love.
Sure. Please go ahead, Isha.
I compare your love to a pandemic. And on that basis, I have written this poetry. Shall I start it?
Yes, please.
My love for you has become diseased. It finds no cure. Months together have passed this way. It finds no outlet. It finds no door. I wandering aimless after years of toil to keep alive a dying relation, as if sheltering a flickering light. My life, you resemble the pandemic, me alone, fighting against your tides. This emotional fight with the self continues, the hope within, suffocated as a caged bird. It flaps its wing to fly, attempting to soar high in the blue sky. My love, I had cried to be one with you, to patch up our shattered paths. Finding you diseased, I thought to get rid of my infected parts. My love, I equate you to the pandemic, waiting to be healed, waiting to be cured, and struggling to shed away your toxic parts. Soon the world will cleanse itself of the pandemic, and my heart too will liberate itself of its agonizing parts. Thank you, ma'am.
Good one, Isha. Very emotional, I would say. And I love the way you started it. And the first line itself, it was a punchline. Like you said something about disease, right? So very, very nicely written.
And
Nice.
Lavanya, pandemic, sorry, love is a pandemic waiting to be cured.
Right.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. So very nice, Isha. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, ma'am.
reciting your poem.
Thank you, everyone here.
And who else? I think I saw
Ma'am,
Rudul unmuting
ma'am,
his.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, actually, yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, Nudul, go on, please.
Yeah, you are
Uh,
audible, but we can't see you.
so sorry that I have to turn on my poem is in my laptop, so so sorry.
Uh, I'm having my
So
coffee. Thank you.
okay, so this is a pretty emotional poem as well. So I dedicate this poem. Actually, I wrote this poem at such an incident that I lost one of my best friend during the pandemic, and I dedicate this poem to him. He was crucified for his sexual orientation, and unfortunately, we lost him. So I
Wow.
dedicate this to my friend. As you all know, human love is not between same genders. It could be otherwise also. So I dedicate this to my friend. So the name of the poem is "How Could I Know?" When I was little, I didn't knew anything. Man, married, woman. First time I felt outcasted. I found no love. Pretended I had. Fears I hadn't enjoyed. Left alone as I didn't knew. Fear squeezed my neck. Never rose my voice. But God inside. Love was not straight. So was I. Then I thought, what is straight? Wandered over lands. Earned riches of voices. I had enough. Found him on the way. I knew there he was for me. Beards and beards never love. Said who? She loved her too. They will get along as beards with beards, born with duality, thrown over for shame. Yet they survived. What they had done, they didn't knew. I am in an eternal quarantine. They didn't knew. Thank you.
Lovely, splendid,
Seriously. I mean, very
amazing.
emotional too, especially the way you ended it. It brought a lot of raw emotion. You said
It's okay. Lavanya,
eternal
do you have
quarantine.
tissues there with you? I
Sorry?
saw wiping you. I saw you wiping your eyes. Do you have tissues?
That's okay. No, I don't have tissues, but seriously, it was very touching. Um, I don't know what to say. People seriously don't understand this sexual orientation thing. And I think one day
Yeah,
we should do a talk on this as well. Seriously,
yeah,
the way
definitely.
people are tortured on that, it's really
Yeah.
bad.
And
Seriously, my heart goes on.
people
So,
are not ready to go, outside conventions, sexual orientation.
yeah, yeah, it's an excellent poem, Rudul. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And one word, Lavanya, before you give to the Mridul, remember today, 14th Feb, you said he was your friend was a transgender who was killed because of his being third gender,
Actually,
right?
he was not a transgender. He was
Crucified
a
is the word you used.
gay. He was a gay, actually.
Yeah, right, because Mridul used the word straight in his poem. He said, "What is straight?"
No,
There
but
itself, you get a
before the
clue
poem,
that.
he said my friend was crucified. So I was asking, was he physically harmed or what is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
both
okay,
both ways, physically and mentally.
that's really
But
sad.
he's alive, right? He's
No,
there.
he's no more with us.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Lovely then. Lovely. So I just remember what you said, and in a couple of months now, Lavanya and I will be releasing a novel, and we'll come back to this topic. Okay,
Thank
Mridul.
you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else who wants to
Ma'am, can I?
join the?
Ma'am, can I?
Yes,
Hello,
Prinika.
ma'am. Can I?
Prinika, maybe after Prinika, you. Yes, Prinika, please go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And can we know a little bit about the speakers? I mean, just one line.
I'm Prenika. I'm Prenika from Kerala.
Okay.
Today I would like to recite. Poem about hope. My title is Hope of Wing Out. fly.
Trinika, your voice is breaking. I'm not sure. Only.
Can you, ma'am, ma'am,
It's still echoing, Trinika. It's not very clear.
hello, ma'am. Can I
Maybe you can
audible
switch
now?
off your video.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, it's better now. Switch off your video and just do the
I-
recitation. Yeah. Sometimes it
Okay.
works without the video.
Yes. Okay, ma'am. Sorry. Hope of wings are wet. It. I will try to fly. Says the butterfly in vain, with the hope of sunrise. The waves are high. The water is swelling. It. I will try to say. Says the sailor, with the hope of calm sea. Are the dirt. It. I will try to put up. Says the cobra lily, with the hope of birds. With the hope of birds. The isolated days are more. It. I will leave with the hope of all the dreams I had with my sweetheart. Thank you. Ma'am,
Thank you, Prinika. I just lost a lot of bit in between because the voice was not very clear. But yes, I could get the essence of it. It would be good if you can paste your poem in the chat. Maybe we can read it through and give a better
Okay,
sense on that.
okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Prinika. Yeah, Sudhindra, you want to go ahead? Next.
Yeah, actually, see, when I write poems, I listen to a lot of hip hop and pop music. Okay, so so that's why my poems rhyme a lot. So kindly bear with me.
आया शेर आ गया अच्छा
Yeah.
No, share
So,
no.
so this song, I mean, this poem is inspired by a song by Michael Jackson. It's called "Hold My Hand." So, I mean, the only title I have taken, rest everything is mine.
Okay.
So it goes like this: Hold my hand when I feel scared. Hold my hand when I feel scared. Hold my hand when I can't dare. Hold my hand when I'm feeling lonely. Hold my hand when I'm dying slowly. Hold my hand when I'm with a heavy heart. Hold my hand when the world falls apart. For it gives me great relief to know that you are with me and my soul is connected to thee. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Don't worry, Sudhindra, we are all there to hold your hand. Don't forget us.
Yeah,
Always-
even Cher falls in love. Obviously. A king needs a queen.
Yes. Everyone needs a
Hold
partner.
my paw.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyone else who wants to join this bandwagon of poems?
Ma'am, can I?
Is it Reshma? Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, Reshma. A little bit about you before you start. Your poem.
I'm Reshma Ella, coming from Kerala, a postgraduate student, and I recently published a poetry collection named Unstrung Notes, which is available in
Unstrung
Amazon.
Notes. Wow.
Unstrung Notes. Okay. First of all, I should thank all of you for this novel but beautiful experience, and Manusa for getting informing about this session. And mine is a short poem, and I don't think whether it goes with pandemic theme or else, but I wrote this poem as this is the first time I'm a Valentine as on this Valentine's Day, and I got a pandemic gift from my parents as a to love a man. So I wrote a poem addressing him. That's
Okay.
that's in epistolary mode, epistolary style. That's to my Valentine. You're my poem, which I can write. You're my dream, which I can't see. As you're my pen, which I used to write. And you're my eyes, which I used to see. And you're my wind, which hugged my soul, which I breathed full. As you're my heart, where I smile with love.
Good one. Looks totally romantic Valentine poem. Nicely done. Reshma, yes. So was this a part of your Einstein notes? No, I think you have wrote this especially for the Valentine's Day.
as he told me that he loved my poems most, so I wrote this poem as a gift for him.
Oh, okay, great, very nice, so sweet. Oh, Trinika, we can't see your. Okay, let me read out. Wings are wet, yet I will try to fly. Says the butterfly in vain with the hope of sunrise. The waves are high, the water is swelling, yet I will try to sail, says the sailor, with the hope of a calm sea. Petals are withered, yet I will try to. I'll try to. I don't know what it is. Says the with the hope of. Can you a little bit zoom more? I can't see it. Sorry.
Try to wait.
I try to wait, is it? Yeah, I think the poem is about hope. It totally goes with the pandemic theme. The first two verses that I read was very nicely done. I could get the theme of hope in every line and in every sentence. So well done, Trinika. Very nicely done. So keep writing. Yeah. And I think she'll share it again. Petals are withered, yet I'll try to. Is that? I'll try to what?
I'll try to put up.
I'll try to put up. Okay. Says the. I still can't.
Just stay there. Says the cobra with the hope of buds. The isolated day are more, yet I will live with the hope of all the dream I had with my
sunset
Sweetheart.
Sweetheart.
Oh, okay, great.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. Very sweet poem, Trinika.
Yep.
Thank you so
Super.
much. Yeah, for sharing it here. Yep.
By the way, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, seriously.
Sounds really good.
Yes. And who else? Are we done, guys? Everyone is done with poetry, or we still have few more people who wants to recite?
We want Lavanya to recite. Lavanya, 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 Lavanya.
Did Manu recite?
No. He said, that's what
Very
I
good,
asked.
sir. Even you, sir. You should say
Can
something.
I recite my poem?
Who is this? Drishika. Yes. Drishika, can you switch on your video? I want to see you. Oh, hello, youngest member of today's talk. Welcome to the show, Drishika.
Thank you.
So, okay. So yeah,
You study in the
class
6th standard?
I'm in 7th.
7th. Manu told you were in the 6th. He's lying about your age.
Give us a brief introduction about you, Drishika. We'd love to listen from you.
Hello,
I mean, personally,
I am Drishika Shah. I am from Madhya Pradesh. I study in 7th.
Okay.
I study in 7th. I'm 13 years old. I just turned 13. I love writing poetry. My inspiration is obviously Manu sir. He has always helped me with my poems. My poem is named Heaven in a Pandemonium because the pandemic has taught us so much with staying united and everything. I'll start my poem. I see people clapping hands outside their window panes. Though they stand 6 feet apart, their gestures united at heart. The world is clapping together for the survivors, those who fight despite having lost, in memory of those who are lost, for the people who risk their life so that others live there without strife. We stay united and clap as one to get through pain and despair, to give hope to our warriors who were regular people yesterday, but the reason we live to fight today. They fight so we can survive, so we can see another day alive, and hold hands as people, not separated by notions of race, caste, gender, custom, or space, who we love and hold dear, or what we support or hear. We fight the same cause now. When our warriors go home or to fight, we clap as one people, and as people we survive. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Rishika. You covered everything from racism, classism, pandemic, hope, war, peace, everything. Beautiful. Beautifully done. Very sweet poem. Thank you so much. I loved your poem very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that was the best. I'm sorry I'm telling you the best because she's just 13 or 14 years old. So, I mean, doing so much at this age is really very tough.
And she'll be younger to Sanjana when she joins.
Yeah, she's even younger to
In
Sanjana.
the 10th standard, no? 9th or 10th.
Yeah.
And she's in the 7th standard. So,
I think she's in, yeah. Right. So I think wonderful, beautiful poetry we had today. We had wonderful, enriching talks. So I think, I hope everyone agrees with me that this was a wonderful Valentine evening. And for a change, we did not go to a club or a pub or, cut the cake or spend with, our lovers. But we had so much time, good time discussing about love and so many other things. Thank you. A special and heartful thanks for Prabhakaran sir for being the chairperson. And you know what, sir? You stayed till the end. None of the chairperson will stay till the end. So I'm yeah, I really we should appreciate that.
It was very good. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Ma'am.
1 second. Preenika, can you stop screen share, please? Preenika?
Yeah, we are not able to see everyone.
I'm not able to. My recording is. I mean, my screenshot is getting. Preenika, can you stop your screen share, please?
I think she is. Maybe we should start presenting and just close it. That way it will go away.
I should present, huh? Okay.
Present and just stop it. It will go. Both presentations will go. Are you?
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, Lavanya.
So, yeah. Okay. And yeah, thank you for Hari sir as well. I mean, it all started with Hari sir's book, I guess. And then we said, and we have so many, authors now with Hydra. So we're waiting for your contribution. Let's see how you can contribute to Hydra as a writers in community, and how we can help you in your writings. It's always one-to-one. It's always like helping each other out. So welcome to the tribe, all of you. And what should I say? I mean, I've spoken so much. Yeah, it's okay. I'll shut my mouth and I'll just say thank you. Good night. Maybe you want to add some last minute.
No. I'm out of place here. I'm not a poet, so.
Okay.
But very well. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Great. I mean, it was. I think.